Hi, I'm Dakota, and today I want to talk about why you should care about droughts in Texas. But in general, I'm just talking about why you should care about most things. Um, and when it comes to asking yourself why you should care about something, I think that you should ask yourself, what do we owe to each other? And that's a famous question posed by, I think his name is M.T. Scanlon in his book, What Do We Owe to Each Other? What we owe to each other. Um, and this question is actually something I ask myself every day, probably, because to me it examines how the world should act in good faith to each other, to be good to each other for the sake of being good and expecting good in return. Essentially, the social contract, and how that breach in contract can lead to events like drought, when people take advantage of other people and the environment and overuse water resources. And that's why, to me, this question of what we owe to each other also ties into the tragedy of the commons, too. How we owe the people of the future a world with enough water resources to survive the future generations. How we owe it to the people of today, to protect our economy, our jobs, public health, and just everyone's general well being and enjoyment of the world around us. Um, but that question of what we owe to each other doesn't just stop at humans. That we in that question involves like all life, at least in my interpretation. It refers to how nature nourishes us and how we have to nourish it back. How that cycle of nourishment can be broken when we overuse and abuse those resources, but also how it can be fixed to help our wildlife and people and our economy. But yeah, at the end of the day, we should just be caring for the sake of caring, caring because it's the right thing to do, caring because we have empathy.